All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're diving into a source that you might not expect, a 6th grade math lesson. Yep, you heard that right. And what's so cool about it is how it uses some of the most ancient stories ever told to teach a concept that is absolutely fundamental to all modern data.
I know what you're thinking. A boy, a giant, a slingshot? What on earth does that have to do with spreadsheets and data? They seem like they're from completely different universes, right? One is this epic tale of courage, the other is, a tool for organizing numbers. But you're about to see that the logic connecting them is incredibly direct, and honestly, really powerful.
So, let's start with a story pretty much everyone knows. David versus Goliath. You've got the young shepherd, the massive warrior, the single stone. But the lesson asks us to zoom in on a specific detail. David didn't just walk up and land the perfect shot on his first try. The final outcome was actually the result of several attempts.
And this is where we turn that story into, well, data. It's actually super simple. On one side, we have the number of attempts. On the other, the outcome. So attempt 1, nope, a miss. Attempt 2, still a miss. And then attempt 3, bam, a direct hit. Just like that, we've taken a story, a narrative, and turned it into a structured data set.
And this is where the magic happens. Because this simple table, this structure of one column affecting the other, it's not just a neat party trick. It's hiding a huge mathematical rule about how the world works. It's all about cause and effect.
Okay, so first up, we have what's called the independent quantity. The easiest way to think about this is that it's the input. It's the action, the thing you control, or the thing that just happens on its own. In this case, it's the number of times David decides to use his sling. It is the cause.
And every cause, right, creates an effect. That's our dependent quantity. Its value literally depends on whatever the independent one was. It's the outcome, the result. Whether Goliath falls to the ground, that depends on David's attempts.
So here it is, the big idea in a nutshell. The independent quantity causes a change in the dependent quantity. That's it. Cause leads to effect. Input leads to output. Once you really get this simple flow, everything else about data just starts to click into place.
Let's lock this in by going back to the story. The number of attempts David makes, that's the independent quantity. That's the cause. And the outcome, miss, and then finally a hit, that's the dependent quantity. The effect depends on the cause. See? Simple.
Now, the source material is great because it doesn't just stop with one story. And that's because this pattern is, and I'm not kidding, it's absolutely everywhere. It's this fundamental structure of reality, and it's just been hiding in plain sight inside these classic stories all along. Once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere.
So let's take another one from the lesson, the story of Elijah predicting rain. The data here is tracking the day versus how much rain fell. So on day 1, 0 inches. Day 2, still nothing. Then on day 3, we get 1 inch of rain. Can you spot the cause and the effect here?
You got it. The amount of rainfall is the dependent quantity because it depends on what day it is. The day is our independent quantity. In this case, the passage of time is the cause and the rainfall is the effect.
Okay, one more. The story of feeding the 5,000. Now check out this data. When 1,000 people are served, there are 10 loaves left. When 3,000 people are served, there are only 5 loaves left, and so on. The relationship is just as clear.
And there it is again, that same exact phrasing. The amount of bread that's left over depends on how many people have been served. So the number of people is the cause, our independent quantity. And the bread left over, that's the effect, the dependent quantity.
So what's the big deal? Why does any of this matter? Because this cause and effect structure isn't just for telling stories. It is the literal foundation of every spreadsheet, every database, every chart you've ever seen. To see how this works in the real world, let's check out another example from the lesson.
Okay, so here's some data for the story of Noah's Ark. This table shows how many pairs of animals got on the ark each day. Day 1, 10 pairs. Day 2, 8 pairs. Day 3, 12. We can read the numbers, sure, but the relationship, the story in the data, it doesn't really jump out at you, does it?
So, how do we fix that? How can we make the pattern in this data just pop so our brains can process it instantly? Well, we have to tell a visual story. And there it is. Look at that. It's the same exact data, but now it's a story told visually. Instead of reading a list of numbers, our eyes instantly see the pattern.
We see that there was a slow day on day 2, a big jump on day 3, and that the last day was the busiest. The relationship is suddenly totally obvious.
Now the lesson breaks down how to make a graph like this into 4 simple steps. You label your axes, pick a scale, plot the data, and give it a title. But the most important, the golden rule, is right there in step 1. By convention, the horizontal line at the bottom, the x-axis, is always for the cause, our independent quantity, and the vertical line, the y-axis, is always for the effect. That one simple rule is what makes graphs a universal language.
Because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of making a graph. It's not about making data look pretty. It's about making it clear. It's about turning a boring table of numbers into an intuitive story that you can understand in a split second.
And that brings us to the big takeaway. This whole thing isn't just a math trick. Understanding this relationship between the independent and the dependent is like getting a pair of X-ray glasses for the world. You suddenly start to see the hidden mechanics behind everything, from how the price of gas affects your wallet to how your hours of sleep impact your mood.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know how to spot this fundamental pattern, what hidden cause and effect relationships are you going to start seeing all around you? What depends on what in your daily life? The answer? Well, it might just change the way you see everything.